Thank you for waking up early and coming to our panel this morning. First off, I think we just want to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Anishinaabe and Huron-Wendat, and I said it right at home and I just didn't say it right, so I do apologize. This ancestral land on which we stand today is still home to many Indigenous people, and we're very grateful to have the opportunity to be here. If you are... This one doesn't work. There you go. There, we shouldn't have any feedback now. If you are a First Nations person interested in filmmaking, there's some really great programs right now that I've seen advertised on Twitter to help more Indigenous and diverse people get into filmmaking, so check that out. I think I have retweeted some of them. And I also want to say, like this. Sorry if you couldn't hear me before. I also want to say thank you from the very tip and top and bottom and sides of my heart, and from everybody else in Calgary, from all the crew in Calgary. We really, really appreciate how hard you fought for our show. It is such an honor. It is such an honor to be a part of this community. So thank you, and thank you from everyone at home. So. On that note, I have some t-shirts to give away from Keep Alberta Rolling, which is an initiative that we're doing in Calgary to keep Alberta rolling, keep people working in Alberta in the film industry, and we would like to give them away. So if you wouldn't mind throwing them.
Baseball's
I'm a lefty. Yeah. It's entirely because I'm left-handed. Yeah. Okay, so thank you for coming. My name is Christin. I'm the script coordinator on Wynonna Earp. I have some very interesting friends with me today on the panel who also work in production but have different levels of experience and work in different aspects. So generally when we say production, we think film and television, but there are also jobs available in corporate videos and schools and news broadcasts and local news, and I'm just talking about the news now, aren't I? But there's some really cool things that you can do, and so we're kind of here to talk about that today. So so let's just introduce ourselves. My name's Christin.
Hi, I'm Allison, and sure. So I am a video content specialist for a corporate production company in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so basically, so I work in corporate. Like Kristen said, there's so many different jobs. And because the Charlotte area is not a huge film, heavy area, I ended up in corporate. And basically my title of video content specialist just means I do a lot of everything.
Hi, I'm Marcie. I work in TV news, primarily a stage director and assistant director, but I fill in direct and direct our sports programming. In Boston.
Hi, I'm Georgie. I'm from the Toronto area. I'm going into my final year of film school, so I don't have maybe as much experience as these lovely people do, but I've done quite a bit in the schooling that I have done. I come from a music background, and then I sort of transferred over to film and TV. And so I'm sort of able to provide a perspective if anybody is, considering wanting to pursue going to film school, and what that's like, and trying to decide if that's what you really want to do. So that's sort of where I'm at.
Cool. So I am the script coordinator, and nobody ever understands what I do because there's not a lot of us out there. Right now, I'm one of two working in Alberta, and I am the only script coordinator that's kind of been consistently working in Alberta for the last 4 or 5 years or so. So it's kind of a very rare job out west. You'll find it a lot more in Toronto and LA and New York and bigger production centers. But what I do is I get a script from the showrunner and I make it shootable for production. So I will make sure that all of the days are labeled, all of the scenes are labeled. Everything makes sense so that if we're calling a character Nicole, we call her Nicole all the way through and not call her Hot sometimes, even though she is. I make sure that it's consistent and easily translatable for production. One of my other jobs is research, so I do a lot of really weird Google searches, and I'm sure that I'm on a list or two because of that. My most recent searches include spycraft, and I've learned a lot about tiny little cameras that can fit at the end of pencils and buttonholes and things like that. So it's a really interesting job, and I'm always learning new things. I also get to work really closely with the showrunner, so I get to pick their brain. This is a position that very often leads to working in a writer's room. So it's a really great opportunity for me to learn how to be a writer and how to be a showrunner. So I really love it. And how about you? Tell us a little bit more about what your job entails.
So I, as a video content specialist, most of my job is editing, which just ended up, kind of where I found my niche and my passion. Because like in video, there are so many different jobs you could end up doing. But when I was in college, I actually majored in digital media. And so it's very broad and it isn't really focused on just video. So within that, I took a bunch of video production classes and ended up doing an internship when I was in college with the corporate production company, and just found that I really enjoyed that aspect of the world rather than different parts of digital media. So that's how I went from digital media to video. And, oh, it works. Okay.
Cool.
And, hello, testing? No, yes? Maybe not. Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello? Hello.
It's working.
There we go.
Can you hear me? No? Yes. No. Hello.
You're on?
Hello. This? Okay. Anyways, so I was in college working on a digital media degree, and I took a bunch of classes for video and decided that that's where I wanted to kind of head toward. So I did an internship and ended up at a corporate production agency, which I now work at, spoiler alert. So I just really loved what they did there, how things operated. It's really fast-paced because it's corporate, so there's a lot of big clients. One of our main clients is Bank of America. We do all of their training videos. And so imagine really, really lame, like acting out scenes on what not to do. That's what we film. So it's really entertaining, and I get to edit all of those. We do a lot of green screen work, and so I've gotten really good at putting people on interesting backgrounds. And then along with editing, so I do most editing. I taught myself how to animate and do motion graphics, 2D animation, because I found that within the corporate world, a lot of companies were really looking for that. So when I did an internship, one of the main things that the company needed was someone who could do animation and motion graphics, and a lot of times they were outsourcing that. So they were looking for freelancers and looking for people within the Charlotte market who could do that, and they weren't hiring someone within the company to do that. So all of our employees, I was an intern, but at the time, all the employees, nobody could do it. So when I was in college, I said, okay, well, this is something that's going to set me apart. Like if I can do this, then they're not going to need to outsource it. They're not going to need to hire someone. So it might put me, make me a little more valuable, make me a little more able to, get the jobs that I need. And so I taught myself how to do animation and motion graphics. And so we do a lot of that for companies. And so if I'm not editing, we have shoots, not every day, but maybe twice or 3 times a week. We do them mostly at studios. We go on location a lot. I've flown to Ohio for work. We just do wherever the company needs us is where we go. And so I'll do that. And when we're on set, I'm usually either operating the camera or grip, which is just assisting, setting up camera, moving lights around, that type of thing. So like I said, I kind of just do a little bit of everything wherever it's needed. But if I'm in the office, I'm usually editing. So
Cool.
It's my voice. It's great. So yes, I went to college at Emerson for TV, not television. It says TV. Pay for the extra letters. Got an internship at like a local New Hampshire station that wasn't union, so they let you just try every job through the year, which was, I think, a really great experience. So you were actually like, I'm 18 and directing New Hampshire news. This is weird and wrong. But you could run the cameras and do the lighting and audio, so that was great. And then after a weird other path, ended up at my job now and went in as a stage manager, which is basically, just a professional pointer. A lot of times I say, go over there, and sort of like a preschool teacher. It's a lot of just, you're the voice between the directors in the control room and the talent. Excuse me. It's great. Blame Andrea Higgins. It was.
I actually started volunteering as well in community community stations. Yeah, it's a great place if you are looking for free training. A lot of stations offer that.
Yeah, in your towns. I loved it. I helped them out for years. And I do assistant directing in the control room, so you're in the ears of everyone who's out in the field, anywhere, organizing all of the live shots and the reporters. You're timing everything. You're sort of just like a balance between everyone else's bad personalities. So you kind of have to just be the calm one and keep the producers organized with the directors and the talent, and my job is mainly to keep everyone happy. So if I'm finding out what people like and how it makes them work better, setting up sets for them that just gives them less to be annoyed with. Yeah.
I had a TV broadcasting class, and it was terrifying because, my college has a TV broadcasting studio, because on top of the film and production program that I'm in, we have a TV broadcasting program, and we take a class, and I couldn't do your job because there's so much happening at once.
You have to multitask.
Yeah.
A lot of listening.
So for me, I went to school for music before I went to do what I'm doing now, which was about 9 years ago. When I graduated high school, I had always wanted to work in film and TV, but it was one of those things where it was you can't, you really have to know people to get those jobs. You can't go to school for it, you can't do all this stuff, so I thought it's probably easier to be a professional musician. It's not. So I finished school for music, and I spent about 3-4 years just doing music. I spent one whole summer where I did nothing but play farmers markets. And they pay pretty well. And I realized at some point that my heart just wasn't really in music as much as it once was. So I sort of had to take a step back and be like, okay, what do you really want to do now? What have you always wanted to do? And film and TV production was what I had always wanted to do. So I actually, in 2016, I was really at a point in my life where I'm well, it's either I just take a leap and try this thing, or I don't know what. And I had started watching Wynonna Earp. At the time, it was airing in Canada on CHCH, at least in Ontario, which was a small, really small channel based out of Hamilton. And I sort of discovered it, and then the Writers Guild of Canada, they do these events called Writers Talk TV at the TIFF Bell Lightbox, where the film festival happens in Toronto. And they were holding one with Emily, where she was coming to talk about the show and screen an episode and then talk about writing and film and TV and all that sort of stuff. So I'm okay, well, I started watching this show I like. These events are free. I'm just going to go, see what it's like. So I went and walked out of it feeling more inspired than I had ever been. And then 2 weeks later, I applied to film school. And now in about 2 weeks, I'm going into my last year. So, yeah.
So Marcie, what's your favorite part of the job?
I like that it's live, it's a bit of a rush. I like to say I can't make decisions in my life, so when I'm at work, that's all I do is quick decisions, that's life. I like when things go wrong, because it's fun, and I like to fix them, and the breaking news, because the day-to-day can be a lot. The news isn't generally fun, and you're watching it on repeat, so it can be a little depressing, so you find your fun, and that's breaking news. So at least you're also doing something different and having to pay a little more attention. I like doing the sports championship events. Sorry, non-Boston. So like the Red Sox, when they won the World Series, I did all of that, the post-game coverage and parade for that, which is just fun because it's different and you don't know what's about to happen. Yeah.
What's your favorite?
I'd say my favorite thing about my job is probably being able to take, like as an editor, you sometimes get an hour or more worth of footage. If we do interviews, so a lot of corporate video is interviews, we do testimonials and that type of thing for different companies that they can put on their website and stuff like that. And often we get, we sit down with someone to do an interview and we may sit there for an hour or longer trying to pull out the necessary pieces that we think would do well for their video. Because our main goal is to get them on camera saying what we think conveys that business's message the best. Like that's what our goal is to help them appear that they want to be around their clients. And so my favorite thing is, we get an hour worth of footage and then I take it into the edit and it's like, they might want a 30-second commercial out of that. So you're taking an hour interview and you have to pull out and pick what you think as an editor is the best 30 seconds of that hour. And so as the editor, I started, when I first got the job, I started as an assistant editor. So I would actually just what we call select. So I go through and I would take the hour and I would cut all of the interviewer out. So I would just take the person we were interviewing and I would cut all their pieces out and then give it to our senior editor. And that's just to make it easier for them. But now I'm actually the senior editor. And so now I'm getting all of this content that's already been cut into pieces and I just have to pull out what I think is the best thing. And so I think it's really great to be able to make that choice. And a lot of times people have different opinions. Like you may send a 30-second spot to someone and they're like, oh, well, about halfway through I said this and I think that would be really great. And sometimes you have to go with your gut and say, okay, but this is the goal. We want to get you to say this. And then sometimes you just have to let them have it because it's their video, right? We always say we don't edit for ourselves, we edit for the client. But that's also really hard because when you get attached to a video or you get attached to an edit, you really want it to say a certain thing or you want the message to be a certain way. And a lot of times that's not what they want. So my favorite part is just that whole process of being able to take all of this information and then just compress it down to a minute or 30 seconds. And it's really, gratifying to actually be able to do that and to see the final version because you're like, wow, that was a lot of footage, like an hour worth of interview that you just pulled out maybe 2 or 3 things they said, and then you're cutting out pieces and, you cut out an and an O and you piece it all together to actually make sense. And that's just, it's so awesome to be able to see that because it just feels like you accomplished something.
I guess for me, just still being a student, just the resources. I think if you've had an interest in film and TV production for so long, like I had, and then all of a sudden you're in the position where you're getting to see and learn how it's actually all done, you're like, wow, this is way harder than you think it is. And I mean, for me, because I'm in the Toronto area, I'm really lucky with my school and the sort of people that are available to us because my school and the faculty is so connected to the Toronto TV and film industry. One of my favorite parts is having people come in and speak that are like working on things right now. We've had people from Working Moms come in and talk to us, and we've got to go on set visits for stuff that's shooting in Toronto. Because especially right now, Toronto is like a huge hub for TV, and it's just getting bigger. And with the school that I'm in, it's a really great opportunity because the connections are so big. We're just able to experience a lot more than other film programs in the Toronto area. And my favorite part is just learning how to do everything that I've just like wondered about for so long, and then actually being the person to do it, it's really cool.
Cool.
What's your favorite part?
I like learning too.
Yeah.
Like the thing about my job that I really love is that because I work show to show, I work contract to contract, I learn a completely new skill on each show. So even though I'm doing the same job, you know, I get to learn about folklore, and then the next one I'm learning about the Vietnam War, and then another one I'm learning about trucking. So it's just like I'm always learning something different and something new, and I think if I didn't have that challenge in my life, I wouldn't be as happy doing what I'm doing, just because it's such a cool thing to be always learning and learning about things that I would never go out and I would never be like, I really want to learn about trucks. So, but now I know about trucks, and it's like, I feel like I'm a better person for it.
Yeah, I was going to add that this kind of, along with that, is when we go out and we film all of these companies, and a lot of the times we have a lot of bank and lawyers and dentists, but every now and then we'll get something really interesting, like a trucking company who wants to do like an instructional video on how to, you know, replace their whatever, you know, and so we go and film this, and it's like, we always joke that we go into these shoots knowing nothing about what we're about to do, and then we leave with all this knowledge on something that we'll probably never use, but it's really interesting to like have little pockets of knowledge from different companies and industries.
Yeah, if you're ever going to a trivia night, film people are great. Great at that, because we're always trying to figure out new skills. So tell us about a moment that you're the most proud of, Georgie.
So last year, well, in the spring, I directed like my first real short film. I had never really thought that I wanted to direct anything, because I had always thought that writing is what I wanted to do. But we do a lot of directing workshops in my class, and my professor pulled me aside one day and said, I want you to direct a couple scenes in class because I think you'd be really good at it, and I want to see if you can do it, and I think you'll do it and you'll be really proud of yourself. And I was like, I don't know. I don't really see myself as a director, because these films are pretty big productions. We had $8,000 budgets, which is like pretty up there. And we go out and hold auditions and cast actors and build our sets. It's a pretty high scale operation. I said, you know what, okay, I'll try it. And then when the time came to actually sort of build these productions up, we had to decide, like, put down what role do we want to do. And I thought, you know what, I'll put director down as top choice. I doubt I'm going to get it, because everybody else also wants to be a director in this program, because, you know, it's film school and everybody's like, I want to be Steven Spielberg. And I got picked to be a director. Then I was like, okay, now there's a lot of work that you have to do in this. There's so much pre-production work, even for a 10-minute short film. But I did it, and I was really, really, really proud of myself. And something that was really important to me is when we were shooting, everybody was super, super stressed, because I know it's only film school, but we ran our sets like union sets, so everything was timed, and some productions were working with union actors. And so we had to be, even though we're students, we had to treat it and act like we're professional filmmakers. But it was always really important for me to keep the set like really fun and not stressful and tense, because it doesn't take much for everybody to get super tense, and you're on a really tight timeline, because you have the first AD being like, you have 50 more minutes and you have 3 shots to get, and you're like, that's not going to happen. We have a dolly shot. But yeah, we kept a really fun set, and we made this little short film that is one of like the best things I've ever done. And looking back, I'm really glad that I decided to just be like, you know what? Why not? Like, what have I got to lose if I don't get to do it? Okay, cool. I'll do something else. If I do, maybe something like nice, maybe something cool will come out of it. And I made a really fun short film and found a strong love for directing that I didn't know that I had.
That's a weird story. It's not funny. After the Boston Marathon bombing, I was working, well, for that, but when they caught the bombers, and I was on the air I was assistant directing starting from noon until about 5:30 the next morning, without a break until about 3 a.m. So that was, it's news and we're union, so if something happens, you're sitting there and you're doing it. But you don't, that was so big, you didn't really notice what was going on, that you hadn't eaten or anything, like you were just kind of in it. And our reporters ended up in a not great spot, so things were very hectic. And then there was a lot of phone ringing, and people in the control room just helping everyone out. And then we got a phone call from Obama saying that he was watching our station and, keep it up and be safe kind of thing. And we were all just like, went from chaos and just, I'm sorry, who's on the phone again? Why? So it was just like pretty cool. And it was, it's a roller coaster of emotions for a day. Because then when you're in something that big, they don't necessarily want to switch out people because you know what's going on and where everyone is and who to talk to with everything. So it's just more consistent.
That's really cool.
And then I got to have a carrot stick after.
Just one single carrot stick.
We shared. There was a little bag. So everyone
Here's your piece, and here's your piece.
Yeah, it's great.
Obama has never called my work.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
We were like, what are you talking about?
Not yet.
It'll happen.
Yeah, I hear he's got a production company, so any day now.
I was trying to think what my, favorite moment was. And I think there's so many things that go on with what I do. And I've had a lot of moments where, like when I got promoted to senior editor, that's really great. But I think one of my favorite moments was just, we had this client who is a very frequent client. We do a lot of shoots for them, and they're a high profile client, and so it's really important that we do a really great job and that everything looks perfect, because you want to keep those high profile clients, because in corporate, you want those big clients. And we had a moment where it was a year or two ago, and the client actually requested that I do the edit, because I had assisted on a couple of them and done a few things here and there, but they had seen things that I'd done in the past, and then they emailed my boss and requested that I do the full thing. And so I was told this, and it's just like a moment of like, wow, like they want me to do that, because they're such a high profile client that we usually hand it off to our senior editor, the big guys, but they requested me to do it. So it was a really great moment. And things like that. And in corporate, I'm not doing big film sets or anything like that. So you try to pick away of the small moments. And when you feel proud of something you've done, or you find out that like a client has requested that you do their edit on like one of our biggest clients, it's like such a great moment, because you finally kind of see, okay, well, what I'm doing is actually making a difference. It may not be changing the world. We're not, changing the world here, but if a client sees what I'm doing and it's impacting them, then that makes me feel like my job is worth it.
That's a good answer. I have been very fortunate to have a lot of really cool things happen in my career, but I really think my favorite moments have been live tweeting. Live tweeting, yeah. Like I work so hard on the shows, and I see how hard my coworkers work on the shows, and we put so much heart into everything that we do. So when we go online and we see the reception that it's getting, it's just, there's no way to describe how incredibly cool it is to see people loving something that we're doing on a regular basis. It's kind of what everyone here has sort of said in a roundabout way. It's really nice to make something that moves people, and I feel so lucky to be a part of that, and I'm happy to be an Earper. So I always think, what would I do differently if I had known what I know now? So one thing that I probably would have told my younger self was that I should step up and take up more space. When you're young and you're trying to get into an industry, and I think this probably applies for a lot of different industries, it's easy to stand at the back and just say that you're learning, but sometimes the people with the most interesting ideas are the youngest or the most diverse or someone different in the room. So that would be my advice, is to keep trying and keep and take up space. So what kind of advice would you give your younger self?
Kind of going off of that, working in corporate, it's a male-dominated industry, much like most film is, but even in, my small Charlotte market, it's, I'm often on a shoot and I'm the only other woman there besides our makeup artist. So it's a really male-dominated industry, and so like looking back on it, now when I go to shoots and we do big things, I feel more comfortable speaking up and saying, that's not how we're doing it, or we should do it this way. But like when I was an intern or just starting out in this job, we would go to shoots and I would see something happening, these guys may be doing something with the camera, and I'm thinking, okay, well, that's not what we discussed, but I wouldn't say anything because, not my job. You say, not my monkeys, not my circus type thing. Like, we just let them have that. But my boss, we had a conversation once, and my boss basically just said, like, if you're seeing something, like, you have every right to speak up and say, I know what I'm doing too. I may not have as much experience as everyone else here, or I may not be doing, the main job that you are. Like, I'm not a Steadicam operator, I'm not, all these things. But, working in the industry that I do, I see a lot of things and I have a lot of this knowledge. I may not be a Steadicam operator, but I do basically, in my job, I'm storyboarding the shots, I'm working with my boss, and we're scripting things, and so I usually have a close, knowledge to what the plan is, and so when things are going off plan, now I feel more comfortable speaking up and kind of putting myself forward and saying, okay, well, here's what needs to be done. And I found that a lot of people, a lot of the guys in the film area that I'm in and the TV, they really, they accept that. They're not off-putting about it at all. Like, if I come to them and I'm like, okay, this is not what the plan is, they're like, oh, can you help us? Like, they're actually very open to, like, me coming up, because I'm usually the only woman on the set. So it feels really good to be able to just know that, like, you can actually speak up and make those things happen, even if you're scared at first or a little more reserved, which is how I was originally. But I think that you have every right to, if you know something, then you should say it.
On that note, if you're a PA, don't tell the experienced director how to do his job.
That's correct.
That doesn't go over well. But if you feel like you have the experience and you have something important to say, it's important to say it. Marcie, what about you?
I sort of like the station I'm at is very diverse and very open to a lot of things and people and things you want to do. If you come in as a PA, like, I lucked into getting to start sort of right as a stage director. But we have a lot of PAs and writers who come in who don't really know where they want to go and what they want to do. And we're just like, do you want to check out directing? Do you want to maybe produce? Do you want to get on the desk? We can kind of make a little demo tape this weekend for you, which I like about us, because it's just, in our free time for fun. But if there's an area you're interested in, because when I applied, I actually initially wanted to be a jib operator, because that was, a thing I had been doing and wanted to be on the crew side, and didn't work out. But I think that also helps me, because one of the things I like is just like, I feel like if you're directing or producing, especially, you should know what everyone else is doing and why they're doing it, how long it takes them to do it, why they got mad when you told them to do this because you didn't understand what they needed to do before that. Just learn everyone's job a little bit. And just ask them, because they are happy to tell you, and it helps them do their job better.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I think part of the industry too is that it's our responsibility to teach younger people how to do the job properly and safely. So if you have a question, ask.
I guess for me, what I would have told my younger self was to just sort of follow your heart and do what you really want to do. Not to say that the time I spent playing music was wasted years, because it absolutely wasn't. But I think I'd like to tell myself that you maybe don't have to pick like you can do both of these things. Like you can be playing music and go out and do unpaid PA stuff just to get the experience. Because I came into film school much older than everybody else in my program. There's a lot of like 18, 19-year-old people who are fresh out of high school. I came in at 24, 25. Looking back, I'm like, it would have been nice to have those years as well to be doing this thing that I had wanted to do. So I would just tell myself, like, do what you want to do what you have a passion for, and just don't be afraid to say, yeah, I'm gonna try it. And you don't have to pick between two things that you enjoy. You can do both.
Yeah, absolutely. And one other thing that I like to tell people too is that you don't have to be the most talented person in the room, but you have to be the nicest. You don't have to be a doormat. Please don't be a doormat. But if you're friendly and kind and you're trying very hard, you're going to get a lot farther than if you've got a bad attitude.
That was one of my interview questions at my job. When he gave, a list of things, he's like, put these in order of importance for me. And attitude was he's like, I don't care if you know what you're doing, but if you come in here with a bad attitude, you're going to be out.
Yeah, you can train for skill.
Yeah.
You can't train for attitude. We are getting close to time, so should we ask the audience if there's any questions? Anyone have a question? Oh, microphone's coming to you.
I'm so sorry. I was just curious as to how you got into like your path specifically, like where you started and how you got into script coordination, or being a script coordinator.
It kind of went like this. I started volunteering at the local cable TV station, and I think I put in over 500 volunteer hours in my first year while in high school. So it was a lot, but I learned how to operate camera, operate audio, how to direct, how to write. So that's sort of where I learned. I got a job after that doing audio on news broadcasting. On the weekends, I was sort of the late night, no one's going to watch this, so why don't we put a 16-year-old girl on the audio board. From there, I went to film school, and then I started working in independent film. And I directed some exercise videos and a movie that no one will ever find on the internet, so don't try. And then that was in Calgary, and then I moved out to Toronto for a couple years, and I worked in lifestyle programming. So I learned how to be an associate producer and researcher, and I met a lot of really interesting people. And then I had a bad boss who really discouraged me from trying new things and kind of made me think that I wasn't worth being in the industry. So I took a couple of years off and I opened a cupcake shop. And I learned about management, and I hated it. Everyone thinks cupcakes are going to be the best, and people are really mean. People are mean about cupcakes. So we moved back to Calgary, and I thought, I'll just take whatever job. And I joined the union, which is another great opportunity for people who are looking for training. A lot of unions offer afternoon classes that once you have that training, you can get a job on set. So I did that, and started working in the office, and I found that I was really interested in scripts. And then I heard that Emily was looking for an assistant with a little bit of light script coordinating. And I thought, I've never heard of this job of script coordinating, but I could probably be her assistant, and if she's terrible, I'll just quit. So she's not. So that's kind of how I got where I am. So I've been very lucky to find people who trust me and believe in me and have given me a lot of opportunities. And I find too that if you can surround yourself with people who are good and who really believe that you maybe don't have the skill now, but you will with a little bit of encouragement, then you can go a lot farther than if you are sort of fighting against people all day. You're welcome. Any other questions?
Just because it already came up, what's your perspective on like unpaid labor in the industry? Because it seems to happen, and maybe the also wage progression? Because Tamara yesterday said that after 10 years she still gets offered a job with just minimum wage.
I try not to work for free. I think it's really, you would never ask a police officer to work for free. You would never ask a doctor to work for free. Maybe we're not as well trained as a doctor, but what we do is valuable, and I think that there is a good opportunity if you don't know anything at all to maybe volunteer once or twice to learn what you're doing. When I was volunteering at the TV station, it wasn't just free labor; it was also training for me. So, if you're going to volunteer your time, make sure that you are getting something in exchange. Otherwise, you're just being taken advantage of. As far as wage progression, I'm a member of a union. I have never been as well paid as I am right now because I'm in a union. And I think a lot of times people are sort of like, oh, unions, they're not great, but they give me health insurance, and they make sure that my teeth are always, if I have a cavity, I can get that taken care of. And I know that my male coworkers are being paid the same amount of money as I am, and that's really important to me. Do you have anything to add to that, Amy?
At least from my perspective, I absolutely agree to not, when you know that you have a skill set and people are saying, oh, but it'll be great exposure. It'll be exposure doesn't pay my car insurance. But sometimes you have to start off with those unpaid PA jobs, right? Because just a few here and there, because that acts as a really good opportunity to meet people. And a lot of, at least in my experience, getting smaller jobs are just from knowing people. So you might do one free PA gig where you're just like, okay, all you're gonna do all day is sit here and watch these traffic cones. You're like, cool, I'm on a film set, but I'm doing absolutely nothing. Maybe don't take that PA job. But ones where you're interacting with people, that acts as a really good door opener for people who are like, oh, you know what, you did a really good job on this thing that we did for free. I know somebody who's looking for a really good PA and this pays. And you're like, okay, cool. So it's tough. There's a sort of a fine line, especially when you're just getting started. You really have to decide, is this unpaid thing worth my time? Even though maybe I'll get a credit on some tiny web series on YouTube, which I've done and obviously didn't get paid for. Or should I sort of hold off and learn more and then find an opportunity where I do get paid for my skill?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to that note, also, don't ever put yourself in a situation where you feel endangered. I have shown up on free work, and I have immediately got a call that my grandmother was in the hospital and had to run out because I didn't feel like it was a safe situation for me to be in. So if you are volunteering and you are just like, I can't, just leave, just do it.
And also, if you are volunteering and doing PA work, there's a really big hierarchy in the film industry, and you sort of, you're not going to be able to go as the PA or the unpaid volunteer. You're not going to be able to go to the director and be like, I have this great idea, or there's this problem. But if there is a situation that's unsafe, even if you're at the bottom of the totem pole, you have a responsibility and you're allowed to stand up and be like, this is going to go wrong and somebody's going to get hurt. It doesn't matter if you're here, on that level of importance. You're allowed to stand up and be like, I'm not comfortable doing this.
Yeah. Not just allowed, but it's encouraged.
Yeah.
The other thing that I really love about working in production is that everybody is just as important as everybody else. The PA who watches the traffic cones is just as important as the director. It sounds like a big weird statement to make, but if that PA lets traffic through, then that traffic could put the lives of the crew members in danger. So they're doing a very important job. Just as important as the actors and directors and the grips and everybody else. So, I think we've got time probably for one more question. Did you have a question? No, we don't have time for one more question. Okay. We're being kicked off. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming, and thank you to my fellow panelists.